All right, welcome to this deep dive. We're tackling some specific source material you shared with us today. And yeah, it's definitely packed with numbers.
It is indeed. Looking forward to unpacking it.
So today, we are plunging into the world of Copper Rotor Motors.
An important component.
Our source is a market forecast document. It's basically charting the global revenue trends for this specific type of motor.
Got it.
And our mission, really, is to unpack the key numbers and projections from this source. We want to see how this market's expected to grow, worldwide, and then drill down into the different regions, different countries,
Okay.
all the way from 2021 right through 2033. I'm actually pretty eager to see what story these figures tell us.
And, market forecasts like this one are incredibly valuable. They give us that quantitative look ahead for specific components, helping us understand where demand might be heading.
Right.
Copper rotor motors, for instance, well, they're often highlighted for efficiency advantages, which can be a big driver in, say, industrial applications. This forecast zeroes in on that market size and growth.
Exactly. Gives us a concrete snapshot. So let's dive into what these numbers could mean for you.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's begin with a really big picture first, the overall global market revenue provided in this source.
Top line numbers.
Yeah, so back in 2021, the market was valued at $723.276 million.
Okay. About $723 million.
Then it grew to $923.5 million by 2025. And looking ahead to 2033, the projection is for it to reach $1,505.58 million.
Wow, so that's over $1.5 billion.
Exactly. And that whole trajectory works out to a global compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 6.3% across that forecast period.
Right. Seeing those numbers, I mean, especially the jump from just over 700 million to over 1.5 billion in 12 years, it paints a pretty clear picture. It shows strong, consistent global expansion expected for these copper rotor motors. The forecast is predicting the market will, more than double its 2021 value by 2033. That's 6.3% CAGR. That's solid growth globally.
Okay, so the global market clearly on an upward curve according to this data. But, where's that momentum strongest? That's where the regional breakdown gets really interesting, I think.
Absolutely. And this source, it points us straight towards Asia Pacific. It seems to be the region with both the largest market size right now and the highest projected growth rate.
Oh.
So it's clearly the engine driving a big chunk of that global number you just mentioned.
Right. Let's peel back the layers on Asia Pacific then. The regional total revenue here is listed as $305.222 million in 2021.
Okay, started around 305 million.
Climbing to $397.567 million in 2025. And then projected to hit a really substantial $676.0004 million by 2033.
Almost 680 million. That's a huge slice of the global total.
And the regional CAGR for Asia Pacific in this forecast is 6.861%, as you just noted. That's the highest regional growth rate shown here.
Yeah, and that combination is key, isn't it? Being the largest market by far and the fastest growing region. It tells us that, investment, production, maybe demand for these motors is already heavily concentrated there.
And only getting more so.
Exactly. It's expected to become even more concentrated over the forecast period. It really seems to be the dominant force in this market data.
And within APAC, we see some, fascinating variations country by country. China, which the source actually labels the powerhouse.
Naturally.
Yeah, naturally leads in market size. It's forecast to grow from over, $80 million in 2021 to more than $183 million by 2033. That's with a healthy CAGR of 7.084%.
Still very strong growth for the biggest player.
But what really jumps out, I think, are some of the growth rates in other countries. Look at India, the source notes, a remarkable rise.
Okay.
Starting from a smaller base, around $37 million in 2021, it's projected to reach over $91 million by 2033. Its CAGR, a striking 7.84%.
Wow. 7.84%.
It's the highest specific country CAGR listed in this entire forecast globally.
That figure for India is definitely an outlier in this data, even for the fast-growing APAC region. I mean, a CAGR approaching 8% over a decade suggests really rapid acceleration in demand. And while the source doesn't detail why, numbers like this often point towards, significant industrialization, maybe big infrastructure projects, or perhaps even energy efficiency mandates driving adoption in key sectors there.
Yeah, the numbers themselves become clues, don't they?
Yeah.
We also see strong KGRs in places like Singapore, that's at 7.248%, and the collective Southeast Asia region at 7.396%. Japan and South Korea show solid growth too, though their rates are a bit closer to the APAC regional average, around 6.2%.
Still very respectable.
Yeah, Australia and Taiwan are also growing steadily.
So it's not just China and India then. Those sort of pockets of high growth in Singapore and Southeast Asia suggest localized factors driving demand too, perhaps linked to manufacturing hubs or smart city initiatives, maybe specific industrial expansions in those areas. The data clearly shows quite diverse momentum right across the region.
Okay, shifting focus now, let's look across to North America. The regional total revenues here are shown as $169.97 million in 2021.
Okay, about 170 million.
Growing to $211.02 million in 2025, and projected at $325.205 million in 2033.
So still significant growth, reaching over 325 million.
Yes, but the regional AGR for North America is 5.555%.
Right, and compared to the global average of 6.3% and APAC's almost 6.9%, North America's projected growth rate here is, well, a bit more modest according to this forecast.
Yeah, it is.
Still significant growth in absolute dollar terms, of course, but
No.
maybe not leading the pack on a percentage basis here.
Within North America, the United States, as you'd probably expect, dominates the market size. It's projected to reach over $262 million by 2033 from around $138 million in 2021. Its CAGR is 5.426%.
Oh, interesting. And Mexico's CAGR is 5.772%, heading towards roughly $22 million by 2033.
Interesting.
And Mexico's CAGR is 5.772%, heading towards roughly $22 million by 2033. So the U.S. makes up the bulk of the North American market presented here, clearly. But Canada shows a slightly stronger growth projection rate. Could reflect specific industrial trends, maybe.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Growth projection rate could reflect specific industrial trends, maybe, or efficiency adoption rates varying across the continent.
Could be. Okay, moving across the Atlantic, US numbers. They show a regional total revenue of $139.592 million in 2021.
Okay, similar starting point to North America, roughly $140 million.
Rising to $173.618 million in 2025, and forecast to reach $272.509 million by 2033.
Right, so ending up a bit smaller than North America in 2033, but still substantial.
And Europe's regional CAGR stands at 5.797%.
So Europe's market size is quite similar to North America's in this data, as we saw, and its projected growth rate is also pretty comparable. Slightly higher than North America's, but still below that global average and certainly below APAC.
Right.
It represents a large, established market with steady projected expansion.
Looking at individual European countries, Germany stands out. It has the largest market size within the region, projected to reach nearly $59 million by 2033. That's up from $28 million in 2021.
Okay.
Its CAGR is 6.491%. That's actually higher than the European regional average.
So Germany's pulling the average up a bit there.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Other significant markets like the UK and Spain, they also show CAGRs over 6% as well. France and Italy have CAGRs more in the mid-5% range.
Okay, so some variation.
Definitely. And then you see countries like Russia and Luxembourg with notably lower projected growth rates in this forecast. Russia's around 4.4%, Luxembourg 4.8%.
Right, that's quite a difference. This variation across Europe, from Germany's stronger performance to Russia's more modest numbers, just highlights the different paces of adoption or industrial activity even within a single continent.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, heading south now to South America. This region shows regional total revenues of $39.057 million in 2021.
Okay, smaller base to start from.
Smaller base, $50.608 million in 2025, and a forecast of $84.839 million in 2033.
Getting close to $85 million.
But look at this. South America's regional CAGR is quite strong at 6.671%.
Oh, that is interesting. How South America's projected growth rate in this forecast is actually closer to APAC's leading rate than it is to North America or Europe.
Yeah.
This suggests the region's expected to be a pretty significant contributor to global growth, albeit, as you said, from a smaller starting base compared to the top regions.
Within South America, Brazil leads the market size, projected to grow to over $33 million by 2033, with a 6.542% CAGR.
Makes sense.
But again, we see higher growth rates in some other countries. Argentina shows a notably high CAGR of 7.179%.
Another one over 7%.
Yes, forecast to reach nearly $17 million. Chile also has a strong CAGR at 6.927%, projected to hit over $7 million. Colombia and Peru also show solid growth in the 6% range.
Those high IKGRs for Argentina and Chile really stand out in the South American data, don't they? Similar to what we saw with India and APAC, this could indicate specific industrial or economic trends driving rapid growth in those particular countries
Right.
that are outpacing the rest of the region, according to this forecast anyway.
Next up, let's look at the Middle East. The market size is reported at $35.441 million in 2021.
Okay, similar starting size to South America.
$45.667 million in 2025, and projected at $75.731 million in 2033.
Right around 75 million.
The regional CGR here is 6.527%.
Okay, so the Middle East's market size is, yeah, similar to South America and Africa in 2021, but its projected growth rate sits kind of right in the middle there, faster than North America and Europe, but not quite as high as APAC or South America.
Another solid contributor.
And another region contributing meaningfully to the global expansion, yeah.
Saudi Arabia has the largest market size in the Middle East, projected for a 6.6% CAGR. But Turkey and the UAE show even faster projected growth, according to this.
Ooh.
Turkey's AGR is 6.852%, and the UAE has a high 7.195% CAGR, projected to reach over $13 million by 2033.
Another one over 7%, UAE.
Yeah. Egypt and Qatar also show solid growth around 6%.
Okay, the data definitely highlights strong expected growth in Turkey and the UAE then. This might reflect what ongoing construction booms, maybe diversification efforts into new industries, or significant infrastructure projects in those countries that require this kind of efficient motor tech.
Could be any of those.
Mm.
Finally, let's examine Africa. The Copper Rotor Motors Market was $33.994 million in 2021.
Okay, smallest starting point.
Smallest starting point. $45.021 million in 2025, and is projected to grow to $71.289 million by 2033.
Just over 71 million.
The regional CAGR for Africa is 5.914%.
So Africa represents the smallest market by value in 2021 among the regions in this source. Yeah, but its projected growth rate is pretty respectable, close to the global average, actually, and slightly above North America and Europe.
That's true.
It's forecast for steady expansion from that smaller starting point.
Within Africa, South Africa seems to be the leader here. It has both the leading market size, projected to reach almost $26 million by 2033, and the highest CAGR in the African data provided, at 6.612%. Nigeria also shows solid growth at 6.131% CAGR, heading towards over $12 million.
Right, so South Africa's projected growth rate is quite strong within that regional context, clearly outpacing the average for Africa. This data suggests it's expected to remain the primary market and sort of the growth driver for copper rotor motors on the continent, according to this forecast.
Wow, okay. That is a lot of specific numbers, region by region, country by country, but they really do paint a clear picture when you look at them together, don't they? Let's take a step back and maybe connect some of these dots.
Right, yeah. Synthesizing all this, the overarching story from this forecast is definitely that robust global growth for copper rotor motors, predicted to more than double in market size by 2033, as we saw at the start. And while APAC is clearly the powerhouse driving the largest volume and the fastest regional growth overall, we're seeing significant projected expansion across all regions. It's not just an APAC story.
No, absolutely not. And within that global picture, I think the real aha moments often come from that country-level data. You see these high-growth outliers like India, what was it, 7.84% CAGR?
Yeah, incredible.
Argentina at 7.179%, UAE 7.195%, parts of Southeast Asia too. They suggest these like localized boom areas that are growing significantly faster than their regional averages or even the global rate.
Exactly. And conversely, you have places like Russia and Luxembourg showing notably slower predicted growth in this specific market, down in the 4% range.
Right.
These variations in growth rates ranging all the way from India's near 8% down to Russia's low 4s, those are really key takeaways. They imply differing levels of adoption or demand driven by factors specific to those economies or the industries within them.
So, okay, we've explored the global growth, we've drilled down into the regional and country-specific numbers. How does understanding this detailed market forecast actually help you, our listener?
Well, this data provides a quantitative look at where the market for this specific component is expected to flourish. If you're involved in manufacturing, supply chains, investment, maybe strategy related to components like electric motors.
Right.
Knowing that APAC, and particularly countries like India, China, parts of Southeast Asia, are projected for the strongest growth, well, that offers pretty concrete insights into potential areas of focus or investment or market demand over the next decade or so.
It gives you a kind of data-driven perspective on global industrial and economic trends. But through the lens of this one specific technology, it highlights where the action is expected to be.
Precisely. And understanding these growth hotspots can be valuable for really anyone tracking industrial development or energy efficiency trends or regional economic trajectories, because electric motors are just fundamental components across so many sectors.
Okay, so to wrap things up then, the main finding from this source is, undeniably, the significant global growth projected for the Copper Rotor Motors Market, expected to more than double its value from 2021 right through to 2033.
Yeah, that's the big picture. And maybe as a final thought stemming from this data for you to consider, given those high projected growth rates in specific countries like, say, India, Argentina, and the UAE, what specific major industries or maybe large-scale initiatives do you think are likely driving that surge in demand for efficient copper rotor motors in those particular places? What's behind those big numbers?
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about the real-world forces behind the numbers on the page. That was our deep dive into this market forecast document. Okay, let's get it.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Into this market forecast document. Okay, let's get into it. We're taking a deep dive today into copper rotor motors. They're really becoming quite critical, especially with everyone focusing so hard on energy efficiency and, well, electrification in general.
That's right. It's a technology with a lot going for it.
And our insights for this, they're powered by cognitive market research, featured over on Global Market Pulse. So solid data behind this.
Gives us a good look at the market forces.
So our mission here is basically to unpack what's pushing these motors forward, why they're key for saving energy, but also, importantly, what's holding them back. Because it's not all smooth sailing.
Definitely not. There are promising upsides, but some pretty significant challenges too.
Okay, let's start with the positives then. What are the main drivers pushing this market, according to the source?
Well, the biggest one, no surprise really, is that huge push for energy efficiency. Copper rotor motors are specifically engineered, to meet tough standards like IE3, IE4.
Ah, those efficiency classes.
Exactly, and they're really essential if we want to get to the even stricter IE5 class. The fascinating part is how they do it. Copper's natural properties just let them cut down energy loss quite a bit.
So less wasted energy, lower electricity bills.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and it means companies can actually hit those, mandated targets. It's not just a nice to have.
Right, because governments are getting involved.
Absolutely. You've got regulations, incentives, things like minimum energy performance standards, MEPS you hear about, and mandates from agencies like the U.S. Department of Energy. They're actively, sometimes forcefully, encouraging adoption.
Okay, so regulatory push is strong. What about performance? Beyond just efficiency.
Big benefits there, too. Copper's much better with heat-superior thermal conductivity. That means the motors run cooler. Think of it like a better cooling system in a car engine.
Okay, and cooler running means?
It means they last longer, more reliable, especially under the kind of heavy, constant load you see in industry.
Durability, reliability, yeah, that's huge for businesses using machinery all day. Where's the demand strongest?
This source points clearly to industrial automation. Think about applications where motors are almost always on, where reliability is paramount. HVAC systems, for instance.
Right. Pumps, too, I imagine.
Yes, various kinds of pumps. And things like conveyor lines in factories or warehouses, places where even small efficiency gains add up massively over time.
Okay, the case for them sounds pretty strong on paper. Efficiency, reliability, government backing.
Sure.
But you mentioned challenges. Let's get into the flip side. What are the major roadblocks?
I'd say the biggest restraint highlighted is just how tricky they are to make. Manufacturing complexity, die casting copper rotors, it's a whole different ballgame compared to aluminum. Needs very specialized machines, much higher temperature.
Kind of precision, I guess.
Oh, incredible precision. We're talking like aerospace level engineering to get the casting right. It's demanding stuff.
And I bet demanding translates to expensive.
You got it. That's the next big hurdle. The high upfront cost, both for the copper itself and the complex production process. This makes it tough for buyers, especially if they're really watching the budget, or maybe for smaller operations.
Okay, so cost is a barrier. Anything else?
Yeah, linked to the complexity, there's actually a pretty small number of suppliers globally who can do this at scale. The investment needed, the technical know-how, it limits the field. So supply chain can be a bit of a bottleneck.
Hard to make, expensive, and not many people making them in large quantities.
Yeah.
Any technical drawbacks apart from manufacturing?
Yes, one more, the source flags. Weight. Copper's simply denser than aluminum.
Heavier.
Right. Now, In a big industrial pump fixed to the floor, maybe that doesn't matter much. But think about applications where every gram counts. Lightweight design is critical.
Like electric vehicles.
Exactly like electric vehicles. The source mentions compact EVs specifically. That extra weight from a copper rotor, even if it's more efficient, can potentially impact the vehicle's range or its performance feel. It's a trade-off.
Okay, so drivers like efficiency are pulling hard, but restraints like cost, manufacturing complexity, and weight are pushing back. Where does the source see this heading? What are the key trends shaping the future here?
Well, the trend is definitely towards even higher efficiency. Ultra-efficient motors. We're talking pushing hard into IE4 and really aiming for that top-tier IE5 class. And copper rotors, they're seen as pretty central to actually hitting those benchmarks.
So doubling down on the core strengths, basically.
Pretty much. And despite that weight issue we just talked about, there's still a lot of attention on potentially using them in EV drivetrains.
Oh, interesting. Why?
Because that drive for high efficiency is so critical for maximizing battery range in EVs. So the potential payoff is huge if they can manage the weight or design around it.
Right. The efficiency gains might outweigh the weight penalty in some designs.
Possibly. And the industry isn't just accepting the challenges either. There's active R&D going on, specifically research into better motor casting techniques. The goal is clear. Bring down those costs and make it easier to produce them at scale.
So tackling those manufacturing and cost hurdles head on.
Exactly. And there's one more trend worth mentioning, kind of an environmental angle. Copper is fully recyclable. That fits really well with the big push towards, the circular economy and sustainable manufacturing.
Good point. Sustainability is becoming a major factor in sourcing decisions.
Definitely gives it another edge as companies get more focused on their environmental footprint.
Okay, so we've covered quite a bit. From the efficiency drivers and the pull from industry to the real manufacturing challenges, the costs, the weight issue, and then looking forward to ultra efficiency, maybe EVs and the R&D trying to solve the problems. It's certainly a dynamic picture.
It really is. And what's fascinating is seeing how these technical details, these economic factors, they all weave together. Understanding these dynamics, for you listening, it's becoming more and more relevant in a world so focused on energy, automation, and greener tech.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a final thought from the source material for you to chew on. Considering just how high that manufacturing bar is and the significant costs compared to, say, well-established aluminum rotors.
Right.
What does this analysis really suggest about the timeline? When might we see copper rotor motors become truly widespread across all the places they could potentially be used? It's not just about what's technically best, is it?
No, it's about the practical reality of adoption at scale. When and how? That's the big question still lingering.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.